So a few days ago, I put my old cat to sleep, my darling Kaisa. She was sedated and she never woke again. And I started to think philosophically, where did she go? Is there an afterlife? Is there a heaven for cats? Or is that like reserved for humans? Will I ever wake up on a cloud someday and hear her meow? I don't know the answers to these questions and I will probably never know. And if there is no afterlife, then she never got to know how she died. And it got me thinking, like it's a very harsh reality for most of us. Once we cross over, we're not really ever gonna be aware that we died. So in a way, we never really do die. And this sort of puts things into perspective. And we really only truly matter and live in the presence. There is basically no tomorrow. Every night when we lose our consciousness, when we go to sleep, it's sort of like if we died during our sleep, we would never actually know. So in a way, every day we wake up is a new life. And in a way, every day is the only true reality. Now, we can discuss the afterlife until the cows come home, but the truth is nobody knows anything. Nobody can tell you with certainty what comes after and what the point of all of this is. Like the only tangible reality to me is this reality right now. Me talking, you watching. And I also think about my identity a lot, like my name, my looks, my history. And I sort of feel like all of these details are just part of the game design. You know, it's nothing I picked anyway. I didn't pick my name, I didn't pick my history, my parents and stuff like that. And I wake up every morning with this identity and this purpose to go through life. You know, I kiss my wife, I go to work, I eat lunch, I come home and I go to bed. That's it. Then I lose my consciousness and I have to do it all over again. And I'm always assuming that I'm gonna wake up the next day. But is that really me that wakes up in the morning? You know, nobody really knows why we sleep or why we dream. And scientists only know that we need it to function properly. But what if we are just simulated creatures in some game and people outside the game can enter us like a roller coaster or a video game? And they can get on to follow us throughout the day. And maybe today is really just repeating itself over and over again, you know? And in a way, some physicists have this theory that everything that's happening is happening over and over again. And that's something that I've considered most of my life, that basically today is the only day of my life, meaning that yesterday it didn't happen. It was just planted memories in my head. And tomorrow is never gonna happen either. When I close my eyes tonight, like I don't even know if I'm gonna get to the part of the night. Maybe somebody who's playing me in this big simulation will just turn off the game. I'll never even know, because once again, when you lose your consciousness, you are never aware that you lost your consciousness. It just sort of happens. And it's sort of difficult to know. We really have no way of knowing if we're programmed with this history, this knowledge. And I know it sounds kind of too incredible to believe, but if you think about it, there is really no way to test if yesterday really happened. Like everything that you know about yesterday could just be a memory implant, or maybe, you know, you put your cup yesterday on a desk, but maybe it wasn't really you. Maybe that was an implant and then somebody put it there, somebody placed it there to create the illusion, you know? While all rationality and instinct tells me that this is not the case, it's also possible that's all part of my programming, like a NPC in a game. And you know, there is this old famous quote, I think, therefore I am, which is the only thing we can really be certain of. But there is also the now. We think today, therefore we think today and now. We don't know if we're gonna be thinking tomorrow or if we actually thought yesterday. So today is the only reality that we know. Whether it's a game simulation or physical reality, this is it. This is all we have. And because we are programmed to believe in a tomorrow, we think that our actions actually have consequences. But if there is no tomorrow, there are really no consequences of anything we do today. And so in a way, nothing we do matters. Now, forget about this theory and imagine that everything is real and does have consequences tomorrow, okay? Forget the whole simulation theory on all of that. But here's my question. Anything that you do today, will it have consequences 100 years from today? Now, yes, you could argue the whole butterfly effect theory that everything we do can have an enormous consequence in the future, but it's in such a remote way that it's very difficult to connect the dots. Like, yes, technically, if I lift this cup up and down, I will move some molecules around, which will create maybe some storm 10,000 years from now. But it's impossible to know if it is actually me who affected it, you know? So let's imagine you do something bigger than lifting a cup. Let's imagine you launch a nuclear warhead and it leads to radiation and death for 50 years. But in the grand scheme of things, as horrible as that sounds, 50 years is not even a drop in the ocean. If you consider this tiny planet in this infinite universe, and 50 years is also just such a tiny amount of time in the billions and billions of years. And so my point is that no matter what you do, like the most horrible or most beautiful thing that you can come up with, it's not gonna matter. Now look, I get it. We live in a practical world and we really can't think in these philosophical terms. It's not very practical for us. We need to think about what we can solve today in our lifetime. But I do also think that it can sometimes be practical to think in philosophical terms, because sometimes practicality of today's problems look bigger than they actually are. Sometimes there is like a big disaster, a big storm, a tsunami, a war, or something like 9/11, where thousands and thousands of people die. And if you look at the grand scheme of things, it's not really a disaster. So let me give you an example. When Titanic sank, about 1,500 people died. Now that sounds awful. That sounds absolutely terrible. You get this idea in your head, like 1,500 people in the water drowning. That's terrible. But consider this for a moment. Every single year, about 200,000 people drown in different places and in different moments of time. But 200,000 versus 1,500. You see what I'm getting at? It's not really a big deal in the grand scheme of things. Now, you might argue that it's a tragedy because so many people died in the same moment. But I would argue that for the person who drowned, it makes no difference. Like it's not a more awful experience for the person who drowned. And it's not a more awful tragedy for this person's family, you know? But also, if we go kind of deeper than that, you do know that like billions of people have died before, and so billions and billions of more people will die in the future. So many lives, so many people and animals, and so in the grand scheme of things, your life or death is insignificant. And some people, they can't really stand this concept. Like people like Steve Jobs, he just had to make a difference. He had to put, and I'm quoting him, he had to put a dent in the universe. But the thing is that 10,000 years in the future, nobody will know who he was. Nobody will know what the iPod was. Nobody will care. So the point of this philosophical jibber jabber is, where is the benefit in your life? Well, it's actually quite simple. My point is that when you fail at something, it doesn't matter. If something tragic happens, it's actually not tragic. If you lose someone important to you, you're not really losing someone important to you. What I'm saying is nothing really matters. And I say that as a positive thing. The illusion of everyday practical thinking is we fool ourselves into thinking that everything does matter. But if nothing matters, why bother doing anything? For the fun of it, to live in the moment, to enjoy the company of friends and family. Life is basically just a game that is meant to be enjoyed, not defined. And so here's the best part. You get to decide how to enjoy your life. Not your boss, not your family, not your friends, you. You wanna build Lego? Build Lego. You wanna sit on the couch and watch Netflix? That's your prerogative. You can do whatever you want. Okay, that's all I have for today. Hope you enjoyed this little video, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.